Welcome to the May Saturday Sampler, close to home here in Southington. I'm Janet Glynn. This month we're going to try something new. It's not for the faint of heart. It might be a little tricky, so I'd like you to watch through the entire video all the way through to the end before you begin your cutting, okay? The ruler that we're going to be using this month is called the Creative Grid 6-inch Curvy Log Cabin. And this is the unit that it makes, a 6-inch. This is 6.5, it finishes at 6. And we're going to make 4 of these to make our block a circle, okay? So we always have a center, which is the same color as our narrow sides. You can notice that these are narrow. And then our other color, which is our dark gray, are much wider, and that's what gives it its curved shape. Okay? We can make our block either in a circle form, or if you prefer, you can make it in a diamond form. It's totally up to you, however you want to turn your blocks around. So let's get making this one block. And we're going to go all the way around, and what's great about the ruler is every time we add too wide and too narrow, we trim right to the ruler. Then we go ahead and we add the second round of wide and the second round of narrow, trim again. And then one last round of wide and one last round of narrow, and we're done. Trim that one last time. All right, so let's go on over. Want to talk about the cutting real quick on the board here? Sorry. I gave you a quick rundown of the cutting. So there are a lot of strips. So the light gray is our narrow. All the strips get cut 1 1/4 by 7 inches. We need 20 of them. And then the very last strip actually gets cut 1 1/2, and we need 4 of those for our center. And then the dark grays are the wider strips, like I mentioned. They are all cut at 1 3/4, and you need 20 of them. And the kit fabric that you're going to get is 7 inches wide. Please be sure to use Mary Ellen's Best Press before you cut your strips. It really does help stabilize your fabrics. When you get your cutting instructions, there's going to be some sub-cutting, because every time we go around, every single round is cut a very specific size. So that will be given to you in your instructions when you pick up your kit. All right. Let's go start. Let's get started. This is the ruler. Do you want me to keep it up nice and tall like this? What's this?
Keeping it forward.
Better? Okay, so let's take a look at the Curvy Log Cabin. Again, it's a 6-inch Curvy Log Cabin. We're going to start with this center square right here, and you'll notice that it has 4 holes drilled into it. So our center square, we're going to place our center square right behind this, underneath this, and mark our corner pieces. We want to make sure that we stay in line with that first round between the marks that we made. And it's 1/4 inch. It's not anything out of the ordinary, but this first piece is very crucial. 1 1/2 inch exact. As we go around, we have a narrow round 1 and a wide round 1, a narrow round 2 and a wide round 2, and then finally the entire thing is cut with round 3. So very quickly, it's a very easy ruler. It even tells you what to cut your strips, at least 1 1/4 wide for the narrow and 1 3/4 wide for the wide. All right, which I've done on my cutting mat already. All right, so I'm going to take my ruler. And the very first thing it asks us to do is to take our center 1 1/2 inch squares and mark them with a friction pen on the wrong side. This is very hard to tell, but you can see that the right side is slightly darker than the wrong side. All right, so we're going to mark the wrong side, and we're going to place the seam guide. Sorry, it's very hard with the light shining on it. We're going to place the seam guide right in the corner of our 1.5 inch square. And we're going to go ahead and mark each of our drilled holes with a friction pen. And we want to make sure when we're sewing, we either want to be just slightly on the outside of these or hitting them as close as we can. All right, so let's start building. As you can see, the first round that we're going to do with our centerpiece is the wide. All right, so we're going to take our first wide. It's also 1 3/4 wide. I'm sorry, 1.5 by 1 3/4, and we're going to sew it along this line. All right, and then we're going to take our next round and we're going to sew it always in a clockwise direction. So it goes, and you'll hear me say this about 14,000 times, it starts with the center, and always look for this orientation from the center to the first wide round to the first narrow round, and it's just going to keep going. Wide, wide, narrow, narrow, wide, wide, narrow, narrow. All right, so let's get started. So like I said, the centerpiece gets sewn to the first wide along the 1.5 inch side. And we're going to sew trying to hit those marks. If not, just a nice 1/4 inch is really all you need. So let's go ahead, get this on here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is just finger press these pieces as I go around. Every piece gets pressed away from the center. So again, if I want to press this away from the center, I take the one that goes away, the top one, and I press it away from the center. Right? I go back to my orientation, which was center and first wide, and now I'm going to add the next wide. So I'm going to be sewing along this line, right along here. And I'm going to sew from this side so I can see my dots. All right, here we are. Line this right up in the corner. And another 1/4 inch. And trim this, and this one gets pressed away from the center. Set up my orientation again. I have my center and my first round of wide. I have my first round of narrows, my second round of narrows, my third round of narrows. They're all set up for me as according to my cutting instructions. Right, so we're going to take the first, or the smallest one, and remember, we're going clockwise. So the wides, and now the narrow. So I need to sew along this side. I'll put these two together. And again, I want to be able to see my markings.
Janet, is
Yes.
it okay that I mark lines between the dots?
If you'd like to mark lines like this, you are more than welcome. Okay, get to the end. And what I recommend is that you do all 4 of these at the same time as you're going around. Don't just do one and do it again and again and again. It's much more efficient if you do all 4 at the same time, okay? So we'll press this again. This one goes away from the center, right? The seams go away from the center. And we're going to take our round one, the next one. And we're going in a circle, clockwise, right sides together. Flip it over so I can see my lines. And bring it right back. Keep those edges right on top of each other. Don't want to make one side 1/4 of an inch and the other side not. Keep an eye on that. And nice straight sewing, okay? All right, so we have completed the first round. We have our center, our wides, and our narrows. So we're going to take our curvy log cabin trim tool. And remember how I said it had round 1 narrow and round 1 wide. So if I'm doing the narrow, I'm going to put the narrow round 1 in the center and line up my stitch lines. I may have made that just slightly large. So keep an eye on that. You want to really hit those marks. We'll go ahead and trim this one. Just on those 2 sides. And we're going to turn the block and we're going to turn our ruler. And we're going to look for the wide round 1. And again, line up our, if you can see the line in our seam, and our block and our seam going across. And we'll go ahead and trim that. Set that off. There we go. So we have completed round 1. We're going to orientate our block once again with my center in round 1, and I'm going to move over to round 2. Round 2 wide starts us at the bottom, and I need to again add my 2 rounds and my 2 narrows. So we'll start here. And I'll go a little bit quicker so I can get this whole block done. Good thing I'm not doing all 4 of these, I'm just doing 1. I'd be here for a while. Finger press these up. You could press after the first round, I probably should have. Grab my second round, second piece, orientate my block, so my center and my first round, and now my second round, and I'm going to sew down this line. Go press these, and then I'm going to add my narrows. Just a nice little heat, and again away, and orientate my block. And now it's narrows time for the narrow. Round 2 of the narrow. So here's my center, always the first round of my wide, first round of my narrow, second round of my wide, and now I'm on to the second round of my narrow. Go ahead and finger press this and add the second piece of the second round of the narrow. going. All right, so let's give this a press before we trim round 2. And again, we're always going to press away from our center. So a little bit of heat, and lift this up and press it away. Just hold on to it for a few seconds. And now we're going to go trim. Okay, come on, Heidi, come on over. All right. So we are on round 2. We have the narrow round 2, which is right here. Off a little bit because I'm going fast. Give this a trim. Turn our block around. Turn our ruler around. Look for wide round 2. Line the lines up with the block. And trim those. One more round and we'll be done. Orientate your block, and I'm ready for the first or the third round of my dark or wide strips in this case. I'll go ahead and sew those on. Finger press that, and the last round of my wide ones, the longest one, is going to go to the left. It should match pretty good at the bottom. Press that back. I can go press this, or I can just go ahead and add my next round. So center, first wide, first narrow, second wide, second narrow, third wide, and I start with my third narrow. Right sides together. Just 2 more pieces and we'll be all done. The last one. Right sides together. It helps I have all my fabrics right side up, so I don't have to think about checking these lights, because this light gray is a little hard to see. Right and wrong side. And this is the longest piece. It's about 7 inches. But again, don't forget, this is all getting trimmed down. All right, and our final trim. Final press, final trim. One last press. Okay. Take it over to our ruler. Now, on the final, there is no round 3 really. It is round 3, but it's both for narrow and wide. So we're going to place our round 3. See if I can push these over a tad. Get this on the lines. Round 3 is here. Gets in there. I'm off a little bit here. I'm not worried about it. You shouldn't be too worried about it. we are going to trim this on all 4 sides. You don't even have to turn your block. If you do turn your block, it's fine. We'll just turn the whole thing. And again, this round 3 is still in the center. Pretty close, a little higher. If I got that square one in the center a little bit better, it probably would have lined up. So you guys take your time. See what we can do with this. You ready, Heidi? Come on over to the board. We have a couple of these made up. We can make all kinds of patterns. If I had, you can have these going all in the corner, play with it a little bit. I just had that, didn't I? Go in this direction. We can even have this going in this direction. Well, you know what to do. So we're gonna have some fun. You wanna do the circle, do the circle. Let's talk a little bit about putting our splash color in. So I was thinking if we wanted to add a little bit of color, we might substitute round 2. So in round 2, we have this larger band going through the center, and we also have the narrow band. So think of maybe either one of those. If I did the narrow band, I would have a little strike of color going around the edges just to frame out my block. If it's too much dark gray for you, think about these pieces right here, which is my second row of wides. It's kind of hard to see because here's my first and here's the second. So if I did this one, I would have these little cornering pieces with my splash of color. Maybe I want my centers to be my splash of color. Okay, lots to think about, lot of cutting this month. Let's go over some things. You can substitute your splash of color in any section that you want. You can substitute the entire dark gray for 3 of your favorite colors of your splash. Let's see what else. For further tutorials on this Creative Grid 6-inch curvy log cabin, visit www.creativegridsUSA.com/products/CGRJAW6. Within that website, Creative Grids have given you video tutorials. There are downloadable instructions. There are cutting charts. Please do visit that before you go and cut your kit. It will just give you a little bit more insight on this month's tool. All right? Bring your finished April 2021 block beginning this Friday, May 7th at 10 o'clock through Thursday, June 10th. And that's the day before we introduce the June block. So Thursday, June 10th is the cutoff to receive this May's kit free. Okay. I think that's everything. Have
classes?
Oh, classes. Thank you, Heidi. We have slowly started to open up for classes. Right now, there are 3 classes going on. Please watch your emails for specials. We have a Mother's Day special currently going on right now. And as we start introducing more classes, you'll be in the know. Check out our events. We have a dime event coming up for Edge to Edge embroidery. It's a free class for you that have embroidery machines. So certainly take advantage of that. Thank you, and please enjoy the tool, and we'll see you in the shop.